Hello everyone, and welcome to the Monster Report. I'm glad you're joining us here for another list that we have. I've got my good friends Alex Rushdy and Stevie Ray joining me on Skype. How you doing, guys?
Not too bad. Yourself?
All right, excellent. And I've had these guys on before talking some monster stuff. They had a pretty interesting list on the kaiju influences and kind of the stories behind that. I remember specifically the Brad Pitt, connection with War of the Gargantuas. I didn't know that, so that was pretty cool, actually, to learn that from you guys. And there's so much that these guys bring to the table, and so we'll get into our list here in a second. Monster Report, of course, is a show highlighting those entertaining creatures of film history, and we're glad that you're here to check out this show and other shows that we have on this channel and on our new podcast, so subscribe to that. Get it on Apple Podcasts and everywhere there's podcasts. Of course, here on YouTube, subscribe, like, comment, all of those good things. And we have today's sponsor. This sponsor didn't ask to be a sponsor. They didn't give me anything. They didn't pay this. But 13 AM Games, who, Alex and Steve, part of that. And there's some great stuff coming out, and I'm just really glad to see that. I follow them on Twitter, and they're doing stuff all the time with the Megadon and Ganira and the game that's associated with it, and so I'm really excited to see that and try it out for myself. And so we'll get the chance for these guys at the end of this episode to plug 13 AM Games, but I wanted to give them a plug right at the beginning of this episode as the sponsor for this episode of the Monster Report. So, with all that out of the way, we'll talk a little about what list we came up with. What did we kind of consider this list to be titled?
That's a good question. We kind of were just calling it the Not Godzilla Films list, where it's films either inspired by or trying to cash in on the whole Godzilla kind of craze at different points throughout time, kind of thing.
I gotcha.
Yeah. Okay.
And so...
Yeah, it's interesting because some of them, you'll see, like, depending on the film, maybe it was trying to capitalize off of the 1954 movie, or maybe it was trying to capitalize off the 1998 movie. I mean, throughout history, whenever there's been a big Godzilla film, there's always been some kind of imitator, so...
Right.
And some of them, sometimes they're more interesting than the original movies because they get pretty weird.
Yeah, and you might say, there's a lot of love for the original intellectual property or IP by these paying homage to it or ripping off in some ways. I mean, there's a fine line sometimes between ripping off and paying homage and capitalizing on the success of. Of course, we remember growing up, there was always like films coming out in pairs. There were two asteroid films at one point coming out, and then there was also the what is that film company that makes the Transmorphers and Asylum, yeah. And so they'll come up
Atlantic Rim.
Yeah, exactly. Some of those films are actually pretty funny, honestly, and pretty entertaining.
Ape versus Monster.
Ape versus Monster is their newest one, yeah.
Yeah, some of them can really, fill a void somehow in life. So, don't write them off too much. But yeah, and getting this list, I think that makes it interesting because we don't want just one necessarily IP. We love Godzilla, and we also, love Kong, and we other creatures that are out there. And, in some ways, we might say Godzilla was inspired by the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. But there's so many differences between Godzilla and the Beast, and that's not to take anything away from the work of Ray Harryhausen and, the creatures that came out of, his film library. And so I think you can love all of these IPs, and you can take and leave them, and we can all be fans of these films and even disagree on them and still be friends in the end. So I think that's, what's great about these. And there, a lot of discussion that comes out of them. Really interesting storylines of how you can get a giant monster destroying your city or whatever it might be. So with that out of the way, this list is in no particular order, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Let's get into this list of the non-Godzillas that are out there.
All right, Steve, you want to start it?
Sure. Well, first off, we're gonna start right out the gate with Gorgo, a pretty famous one. It's a UK film, made to kind of capitalize in on the kaiju genre. It stands out mainly because it's one of the first, I believe, to have the whole infant kaiju and parent trying to come and save it. But it's a good classic. It does enough to kind of set itself apart, and it's gotten its own reputation on its own right. It's a good little film. A little bit of trivia I had here was that apparently it was originally supposed to be a Japanese UK co-pro, and instead of being taken to I believe in the movie it's a London zoo. It was supposed to be a Tokyo zoo, but apparently the funding there dropped out or something happened, and it just became a full UK title.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I always really like about Gorgo is it's a Eugene Laurier movie who did Beast from 20,000 Fathoms and Behemoth, but like for whatever reason, instead of going with stop motion, they went with the kind of Japanese style man in suit with rubber, miniature buildings and the tokusatsu style effects, which can be very difficult. It's not easy to pull that off, but this film has some of the best miniature work of its era, in my opinion, and it was one of the earlier full-color kaiju spectacles. Before Godzilla didn't even have a color movie by the time this had come out. So from a special effects perspective and from a story perspective, it's still holds up really well, and it's still a great movie.
Yeah, and I mentioned this with John Bellotti Jr. earlier. We both had. Well, I don't know if he had Gorgo on his list of just monster influences in life, but we both had a lot to say about Gorgo, and just the one thing that was cool about the fact that, like you said, it's a UK production, but it was definitely inspired by Godzilla. So I always explain to people when they say, "Well, who's Gorgo?" He's like Godzilla, no fire, breathing breath, and he's got big fingernails. It's like other than that, he's pretty much Godzilla. But the story did inspire other stories out there. Gorgo had an influence on Steven Spielberg's Lost World, Jurassic Park, with that whole idea of the infant T-Rex being taken to the amphitheater to be displayed for public, and the mother going to rescue the infant. And so there was actually an homage to Gorgo through that. And I even think what was it, GAPPA had a connection with Gorgo in a sense too. So but yeah, it actually ended up inspiring, and even MST3K had their take on Gorgo, but I honestly think they loved the film, regardless of their poking fun at it.
Sometimes they do. Sometimes they just like it. And I didn't know that about the Lost World Jurassic Park, but that's funny. But as a kid, I always thought that there was some kind of missing link between Gorgo and Titanosaurus, just because they had similar kind of years and stuff. But
there's some DNA sharing that
there's got to be. There's got to be. And I do really enjoy seeing any kind of kaiju film in a part of the world that isn't Japan, just because you get that different architecture, and seeing a monster like tear apart Big Ben is just cool.
Right.
And I do really like the story for the film. I do really like the connection that the little boy has with the monster, and I'll always remember the trailer for Gorgo was at the end of I think a King of the Monsters tape that I had as a kid. And it was like etched into my mind forever. As soon as I saw that trailer, I was like, I need to find this tape. I need to watch this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And when you saw it as on VHS, I remember seeing it in the video store actually, and still loving it even with that VHS quality. But now they've come out with there you go. Nice. Yeah. Their
The Blu-ray is great.
It looks great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was so surprised how well it transferred. And so watching that original VHS tape and seeing it in that nice HD quality, it's just like a whole new movie. So great pick.
And the Blu-ray has some good special features and stuff.
Yes,
and it's solid. And Gorgo ended up getting a comic book series. You can see they show parts of it on the Blu-ray.
Mm-hmm. That's a great pick.
All right. Well, the next movie is from the 90s. It's a direct-to-TV film made to cash in on all the craze around the 1998 Godzilla movie, and it's called Gargantua. And it actually came out. It actually beat Godzilla 1998 to the punch in terms of release. It aired before the film hit theaters. And it's also another film inspired, or at least seemingly inspired, by Gorgo. Steve's got a copy there. Steve, you grew up on this film. If you want to chat about it.
Yeah, my little kid brain didn't process that this was a bad movie at the time. So I used to rent it out a lot. There's this bad boy right here. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, it's very similar to Gorgo, where a little baby dino is found and kid connects with it, and then of course it gets captured, and they want to make money off of it, and then the parents show up and try to get it back. It's been a while since I've fully enjoyed the movie, but it's something to behold. There's some cool practical effects in it. I will give it that. There's not so great CG in it.
Okay.
But it's definitely a watch with friends and make fun of kind of movie.
And this is one I'm not as familiar with, so you might have to let me in on a little of the creature design, because I'm not sure of it, honestly.
Yeah, it's kind of like a generic dinosaur design, just with like a horn on the tip of its nose.
It kind of reminds me of Barugon from Gamera.
Okay.
Just a bit.
Yeah. But it stands
green.
on its hind legs. And
okay.
There's actually a toy of it, which is apparently very hard to find. But yeah, there's a toy of it, which looks pretty cool. I would get it if I could find it, but it's a heck of a film, that's for sure.
Okay, yeah.
It's also Emil Hirsch's first film role, who went on to do a lot of other better movies. But he's quite young in the film.
Got to start somewhere. Yeah.
All right. That's all we really got to say about that one. There's not a terrible amount to say about that.
It's also not one that's like, I'm sure it's on YouTube, but it hasn't gotten like a remastered DVD or Blu-ray or anything. It came out on tape and DVD in like 98 or 99, and like that was it.
Yeah.
So you can track it down if you want.
Direct to video, like you said, right?
There's actually you can find a widescreen version of it on YouTube, which I have no idea where it came from, but
I didn't even know that existed.
It's out there.
Interesting. Wow.
Ooh, okay. Next on the list, we have Yongari / Reptilian / Yongari 1999.
Wow.
We've got kind of a three-fer here. So Yongari, of course, was a Korean kaiju film made to cash in on the kaiju boom in the 60s, I believe. And the only way you can watch it right now is the English version. As far as I know, the Korean version is lost or just not available.
Yeah. The back when this is from what I understand, Korea did not have a massive film industry in the 60s, and they didn't export much of their films at all. So Yongari was like, they're like, this is our big movie. It's a kaiju movie. Kaiju movies are popular. We want this to be how we break into other markets. So when they got an American distributor, they just sent over all the materials for the film. They didn't send over duplicates. They sent over the originals.
Really?
It's the American distributor, yeah. They cut it up and edited it and dubbed it, and then they were like, here you go. Here's the English version. And the Korean side was like, ooh, maybe we shouldn't have sent over the originals. And so there's only, I think, 30 minutes surviving or something of the full unedited Korean version. But the English version you can get on like Blu-ray or watch it on Mystery Science Theater.
Yeah, yeah, and it's got definitely that '60s Toho feel to it. You know, kind of a almost Ultraman feel to it in a sense, and slash Godzilla. You know, I'm reminded a lot of the Godzilla films of the '60s, and so I definitely could see that connection made in it. And it's like you said, it's Korea, so cashing in on that, and we have other Korean monster films. Maybe we'll even have them on our list, but that's kind of interesting to see. You know, that's where it kind of started. I don't know if there's a kaiju film that predates Yongari from Korea. I'm not sure, but I think that was probably the first.
There might be, but we're not sure.
Yeah,
because there are two other kaiju movies that I can think of off the top of my head. One of them is called Wang Magui, that I think came out the same year. It's a parody of monster movies. It's in the Korean Film Archive, but they refuse to license it or put it on DVD for reasons that I don't know. Maybe there's a legal issue. And then there's one called Bulgasari. Not to be confused with Pulgasari. This is a movie from the 60s. We're not even sure if it's real. There's just a poster that's been circulating around for years. But if it is a kaiju movie, it would predate Yongari. But
really? Okay. Yeah.
Who knows? It's a mystery. But yeah, Yongari is probably the first, and I believe they actually got some Toho special effects people to come over to help out with the effects shots.
Okay, well, and that's what gives it its look. But Yongari's great, honestly. You know, it's great to see, and great to see that new Blu-ray release as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then later down the line, the '98 Godzilla movie came out, and they figured they'd tried their hand at Yongari once again in 1999.
With a second G this time.
Yes, 2 Gs. Very different. But they did practical effects, and I think it was set up to be the most expensive South Korean film at the time. And it released and had bad reception, and then they decided to cover everything in CG and redo all of it, just put CG all over it. And that was a 2001 release, which goes by the name Reptilian in North America.
Yes, and I have seen Reptilian, yeah.
As I understand it, the 1999 version, which is lost, it wasn't so much that they had a lot of practical effects scenes. I mean, it might have had more than the finished film, but apparently they didn't. So this movie cost a lot of money, so much money that Shim Hyung-rae, the director, got money from the Korean government, because it was, again, this is for the second time, the Korean film industry was hedging its bets on Yongari to be Korea's breakout film. And it's interesting because it wasn't, but now Korean film is globally recognized as top tier. So this movie cost a lot of money. Shim Hyung-rae was not an experienced film director. Like, he was experienced, but he made his films in a very strange way, and he brought in a fully American cast to speak English. He was shooting the movie in order. It was a really chaotic shoot. And the 1999 version they released with just unfinished special effects. It started off finished. By the time we got to the end of the movie, it was pre-visualization and wireframes and stuff. Yongari just started to disappear as the movie went on. And it was because they needed more money to finish the film. So by the time they got the money from that first screening, they could release the 2001 version with the finished special effects, which to me is insane. But I mean, is what it is.
And that's where, an American film with that much budgetary issues, they just call it quits a lot of the times. And
yeah, they would just kill it.
Yeah, it's this is a money pit.
for better or worse, I am glad it exists. It's a wild film.
Yeah.
It feels kind of like a fever dream.
Yeah.
And it's one of those films where it's fun to learn more and more about the backstory, and you appreciate the film a bit more. Like when you realize that the reason why one character just disappears from the film is because he just decided to never reappear on set again.
Yeah, his contract. He was supposed to be the main character, and he just disappears towards the end of the film. And he was just like, he shot for, I guess, the amount he was supposed to, and they're like, "Hey, we need you to shoot more for free," and he was like, "No, I'm good."
Wow. And it was just like, we never speak of it again. He's just gone. He's
just gone.
Yeah. He's a spirit now.
Yeah. So Younger is an very interesting film. Highly recommended. Also, I'm sure it's available on YouTube. Recommended as an oddity. It's not a great movie. It's just very interesting. But these next films we kind of paired together. So the first one of these two is called PULGASARI. Mm-hmm. And so this is actually I'm sure we're all familiar with it, but it's people who may not know, it's a North Korean kaiju film. So essentially in the 80s, Kim Jong-il, who was a humongous movie fan, he wouldn't let the North Korean population watch foreign movies, but he would watch loads of them, and he loved kaiju, and he loved Godzilla. So he wanted a North Korean Godzilla movie. So I mean, I'm gonna kind of cliff notes the making of this film, which is even more insane than Yongari. But he kidnapped the director, he kidnapped the leading lady, and he also sort of kidnapped like the Toho special effects team and Kenpachiro Satsuma and
an entire film crew.
The entire film crew. He tricked them into like they were hired for what was supposed to be, I think, a Chinese film or a Hong Kong film, and they got on a plane, and the plane landed in Pyongyang, and they were like, "This isn't Hong Kong, like this is North Korea," and they just went along with it. It's a very interesting film in that this is the last film by that kidnapped duo of director Sang-ok Shin and his wife, or his ex-wife actually, and it's a movie about a bunch of peasants who are being harassed by this really I guess emperor, and I guess essentially they come, this emperor comes to steal their to take all their iron for use in war, and they find a monster. The monster eats iron and gets strong, and they use it to overthrow the emperor. But then the monster keeps eating more and more iron and kind of turns on them, and they have to destroy it. It's a very interesting film. Like it, as a film, it's got great special effects, great monster design, and actually a quite interesting story that feels like the director may have been taking a jab at Kim Jong-il, subtly, like he didn't realize it. But yeah, I actually really enjoyed this film. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, I think I feel bad about it, but I really enjoy it. It's like it's a really interesting premise. The miniatures are amazing. Like, even though it's done in the 80s and it kind of looks like a more of a Showa style film, but it's still like it holds up and it looks pretty looks really well done.
And that design of Gogogasari, I just love that design. And they came out with a figure recently for it, and I know it became pretty popular. Oh, there it is. Yeah. So
right here.
Yeah. It looks amazing. It's so cool and so unique.
By Dope Pope.
What'd you say there? Sorry.
Oh, I said it was sculpted by Dope Pope. If you know him, he's a really cool artist.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I need to get that figure. I actually have none of the figures of him, but I don't think there's many of them that were made, were there?
There's not. I think there was 100 each of those, and there was a Marmot figure back in the day, and another figure. I don't remember.
Yeah, but he's beloved by the kaiju fans that are out there. Like a lot of these that you have on your list here. It's and the story. Yeah, makes that film better, I think, and it's just knowing that wild and crazy, and the politics that were involved in that, and how, would this happen today, and even North Korea, trying to maybe put its finger on the scales of the film industry, even with that film that was, I forget what it was called, a few years back, that Hollywood tried to put out, and it was a jab at Kim Jong-un.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was called.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, The Interview or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, and it didn't end up getting released in theaters because of the politics involved in it, and so that would be the only reason to see, I think, a film like that is because of the politics, but this one, knowing that backstory, and it's like, would that ever happen today? Would they just be like, I'm not making a movie for this guy? It's like, yes, you will, or you may not see tomorrow. So, wow.
Yeah.
Such a cool story.
I mean, like I say, I feel bad for enjoying it, but on the other side, this film is how they escaped.
Yeah.
Because they were out of the country for that film, and they were able to find refuge.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a great book about it. I don't remember the name of it, but I'm sure if you looked up Sang-ok Shin, you could find it. And another cool thing about this movie as well is that it is, like Daimajin, a feudal, a pre-industrialization kaiju movie. So they're not fighting tanks or things. It's villagers and old architecture. It's quite visually unique.
Mm-hmm.
So if you like Daimajin, you'll probably dig this movie. And once you watch the movie, you really got to learn about the history of it, because that's really integral. But what's interesting is after Sang-ok Shin escaped, he came to the United States. He took on the name Simon Sheen, and he started producing movies. His most famous movies are probably the Three Ninjas movies, Three Ninjas Kick Back, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's like our age group.
Mm-hmm.
But he also wrote and I guess produced a movie called Galgameth, which is playing behind me. This guy right here.
Mm-hmm. And
it is a medieval fantasy, like a Western medieval fantasy remake of Pulgasari.
Okay.
I really like Pulgasari, but Galgameth surprised me in that I might actually enjoy it more. It's a lot more comedic. It's a family movie. It obviously fully changes the context, but it's a really enjoyable film. It's a lot of fun.
And it's I've been kind of watching it in the background. It's one that I'm not as familiar with, so I'm assuming it's like medieval knights and horses and all of that. Yeah. Medieval
knights, horses. It's kind of got an evil, I think it's an evil vizier or something that overthrows a king, and then it's his son that has to go and, with the help of this creature, win back the kingdom. It's a lot of fun. It's also on YouTube, very easy to get a hold of and watch. Or there was a tape and a DVD that released as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say we should preface that it's not readily available.
Yeah.
Like the DVD that came out, I believe, is long out of print, and also a French DVD. And then the other releases are all on VHS. So the easiest way to watch it at this point is on YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube or archive.org or something. I've never seen it pop up on a streaming service, though it may have in the past.
Yeah.
A great one, especially if you want to watch it with kids.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely looks like that. I keep seeing the creature there, and I'm reminded of the baby from Dinosaurs in the 90s.
They were separated at birth.
Yeah, or that's him grown up. Who knows? I don't know, but I can see not the mama coming out of that guy's mouth, that creature's mouth. And I even think he just ate some iron too, right? He ate axe or something. So
he's growing.
Yep.
He's growing.
Yeah, this one I'm gonna have to check out.
It's a bit of a hidden gem. It's a weird movie, but it's one that I quite enjoyed.
All right.
All right, next on our list, we have Reptilicus, which is a classic Danish kaiju film, though I think calling it a kaiju film might be problematic to some people. But it's a big old it's a big old snake attacking a city. And it's a fun ride. It was shot two different versions. They shot a Danish version and an English version, all the same actors. They would, I believe the way they would do it is they'd shoot a scene and they would do the Danish version and then they would cut and then they would be like, okay, let's do the English version. And they roll the scene, shoot the English version, and then go.
Like the Spanish Dracula.
It's exactly what I was thinking.
I guess those were two different crews, but
yeah.
And yeah, so then when it came over to get its U.S. release, the English release, I guess the North American producers found their accent to be a bit much, so they decided to dub over everybody. And apparently the director at first was not too happy, and then there was a big meeting, and there was at first a threat of a lawsuit, and then after watching the dubbed version, they're like, yeah, all right, that makes sense. That's all right. We're cool with it.
Seeing is believing. So
yeah, but it's fun. There's a few differences between the English and the Danish version. The Danish version having a full musical number in it.
Wow.
Which you can find on YouTube, I believe.
Yeah.
It really comes out of nowhere.
Yeah. But this is a classic. I love Reptilicus, actually. I saw the trailer as a kid on that, I think it was called Dinosaurs of the Movies or something to that effect documentary that was out there. Yeah, I think it was Donald Glut that had produced it, and it had just a ton of trailers from all kinds of dinosaur or kaiju or giant monster films, and Reptilicus was in there. It was a black and white trailer for it, and so I was glad when I saw it with the color. You got to see the green saliva, whatever, slime, flying at you. But it's a classic. I mean, it is a lot of fun.
I also didn't, when I first watched it, I didn't expect how comedic it was. Mm-hmm. Like, I didn't know anything about it really, and then when I started watching it, it's like it's just almost, it's pretty much a comedy. It's just a straight up comedy at points.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel like even I'm assuming the original Danish version is even more comedic.
Yeah.
And I believe it's the Danish version that has the flying scene, right? For Reptilicus, you can see they cut it out of the English version, I think, because they thought it didn't look impressive enough, which fair enough. Reptilicus can fly.
Yeah, in that version, I have heard about the flying Reptilicus, but it kind of like along the lines of the giant claw. It's like, is there much to salvage from that? To make an obvious puppet, I assume, or I don't know if it was strings or puppetry that they used on Reptilicus.
Some kind of puppet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it was strings and puppetry like that.
Yeah. So to make even that effect, look more convincing, but the pseudoscience backstory of how he was created, it's just like, wow, just set your brain to the side and just enjoy, because you're not gaining much out of this film, but it's just big dumb fun, and Reptilicus is definitely one that I was familiar with as a kid.
Yeah, it's classic. So then another one that we've got here on our list is the Agon the Atomic Dragon. So this was actually a 4-part TV miniseries that was produced in 1964 but didn't air until 1968. So it's black and white, and it's basically got two hour-long stories split into 2 episodes each about Agon, the atomic dragon. And it's an interesting little series. It's one that I enjoy. It's definitely got that 60s aesthetic to it. And it was written by Shinichi Sekizawa, who wrote a lot of classic Toho science fiction movies. But the thing is it was meant to air in 1964, but Toho was, I guess, just not pleased that there was another atomic dinosaur monster that was going to show up on television, and they halted that release. I don't know the details legally of what happened, but eventually they were just, I guess, fine with it, and they let it go to air in 1968, and then later on, it was actually Toho who released it on home video. So, I guess they buried the hatchet and thought it was fine if Sekizawa was making monsters for someone else.
Kind of like Tsuburaya, you know.
Kind of like Tsuburaya. Yeah. So I don't think they ever tried to step on Tsuburaya's toes. I mean, I don't think anyone ever told him no. Like, right. Maybe you shouldn't just take the Godzilla costume from us and put a frill on it. And he was like, nope, I'm doing it. I'm going to do it twice.
Yep. And all the, work that he did for the Toho and had, in some sense, kind of undermined what they were doing, creating the Ultraman series and all that. And so here Sekizawa, maybe, Tsuburaya had, the bigger clout, I guess you could say, to maybe, be above that in a sense. But, that it was happening. That television industry was eating their lunch and putting it off 4 years. May have it's all the corporate structure and how it had to happen. But yeah, interesting backstory on you called it Agon. I've heard it, or you called it Agon or Agon. I've heard it called Agon, but whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I believe it's supposed to be atomic dragon, so Agon is what I think that's how they pronounce it, but either or.
Yeah.
It never got an English, like a proper English dub that I'm aware of. So
did it get a home video release? I mean, you said it was Toho, a VHS release, but did it get DVD, Blu-ray, anything like that?
Yeah, actually, it just recently got a Blu-ray version.
Okay.
In Japan only. But there are ways to find Agon online.
Yeah.
I do recommend checking it out. There is an English subtitled version of it available. And I mean, the first half of the series is kind of slow and weird, but the second half is a little bit of a gangster story. It's pretty neat.
Mm-hmm. Definitely worth a watch.
Yeah. So I mean, Steve doesn't like the soundtrack.
No, the soundtrack's banging. Somebody heard some water drops and thought, "This is a beat," and they put it as
it's
the full
gold,
soundtrack.
Jerry, gold.
It's not unlike, I guess, how the soundtrack to the Tim Burton Batman came about. You heard that story, right?
No.
It literally was just the music director is alluding Danny Elfman, who's on an airplane one day and heard the humming of the engines, and it did that, and then he just started putting it together based on that, and it was it became an iconic soundtrack for that series of films. So yeah, just where they find their inspiration. But water droplets, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty direct.
Wow.
All right. Next on the list is GAPPA, as we briefly mentioned quickly. Again, it shares a lot similar to GORGO, though apparently the creators have gone on record that they had not seen GORGO and that it was not an inspiration. It was just kind of like similar ideas, around the same time, just kind of coincidental almost.
Sure it was.
Yeah. It's really hard to tell if it's, they're just trying to avoid a lawsuit of some sort. But we'll take their word for it for now.
It's all history at this point.
Yeah. But yeah, that's another classic kind of tale of child monster. Parents come in angry after it's been taken. Great effects. Oh, there's not. I can't really think of too much else to say about this one. It's a fun ride. It's got some great bad dub lines that you can quote with your friends over and over and over again. It's one of those fun ones that is like, okay, I may have seen something similar and I might know how this plays out already, but still a fun ride. And the creature design is fun and cool and different.
And would you say that it takes from both Gorgo and maybe a bit from Rodan as well?
Yeah, there's definitely some Rodan esque scenes in there.
Rodan, Godzilla, and Gorgo. So it's like, take the best of everything, and it also had, I remember in the what was the famous not Famous Monsters book, but the Monsters. It's the book in the library that I always refer to. I'm blanking on its names, but it was one where it had a lot of the poster art. It was a pictorial history of monster movies, I believe, or horror films, and it had a full-color poster of GAPPA. And I remember as a kid checking that out and not being able to access GAPPA as a kid later on, and of course the poster made it look so much cooler, this creature that can fly and breathe fire like Godzilla, and so it kind of disappointed me when I finally did get the chance to see it, and I was like, man, that poster really sold it. But yeah,
it's a great poster.
Yeah, and but yeah, that pictorial history of horror films book was definitely one that I did a lot of looking at as a kid and seeing some of the more obscure films that were international monster classics and all that. Of course, it had its Universal monsters, but it had a lot of cool stuff about Gamera and Godzilla. Before the internet, that's how we figured out where these films were coming out of, and what the titles were and all that. Is go to the library and start searching around. So, but yeah, I'm still still baffled by that film and its backstory.
Yeah, it's a weird one, and it's I believe GAPPA was a Nikatsu film, and I think it was their only kaiju film they ever. So it came out in 1967, which is considered peak kaiju boom, because we had Son of Godzilla, we had GAPPA, we had The X from Outer Space. Was it Gamera versus Giron or Virus? I can never remember the exact years on those, but it was just a slew of kaiju all in one year. Plus Ultraman wrapping up and Ultra 7 starting. It was a lot of kaiju in one year. And I guess every movie studio was like, well, we got to get in, and so Nikatsu was like, we're gonna make GAPPA.
Yep, get the budget ready.
Yeah. Speaking of, the next movie we wanted to talk about was The X from Outer Space, which was part of that kaiju boom. It's a movie. Honestly, I've seen this movie and I couldn't really comprehend. It doesn't really stay in my brain. The movie itself is not great. It has some interesting moments. It has cool special effects by Keiji Kawakima, who was actually taught by Eiji Tsuburaya. As a film, it's a bizarre, not fully enjoyable feature, but it has one of the my favorite kaiju designs ever. You can see I've got 4 figures of Gilala because I just love Gilala that much. The movie, I don't know about this one. I can't say I can recommend it.
Well, and go ahead, Al. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
There's also a fantastic scene where a woman is stuck under rubble, and I don't know what they did to the poor dub actress, but oh man, the screaming is
That's rough.
Doesn't quite match.
It's the only real part of the film.
Okay.
Is that screaming? It's just like, oh no, what happened?
I'm going to admit that I haven't actually seen this one in its entirety. I've seen, I saw that it was out there and started checking some clips out online and just kind of took a pass on it. But yeah, it's definitely one of those that you're just like, well, where did this come from? And that Galala design actually, correct me if I'm wrong, it has a lot of Ultraman, his foes. That design, it just seems like there's some similarities there. Obviously, you said the Subaraya connection, so...
Yeah, I mean, it's got some Ultraman kind of flair to it to me. Like, I feel like you could swap Gilala into, say, Return of Ultraman, and it would feel right. But I do like how Gilala's weird, but it still kind of has that dinosaur look to him.
Mm-hmm.
There's something really neat about that. Also, this film was like one of the first kaiju movies that Criterion ever released.
Yeah.
So
wow.
You can get it in their Eclipse set called Horror Came to Shochiku.
Yeah.
Because Shochiku is the studio that made the film.
Yeah, not our Toho and Daiei. Yeah, I remember that set that came out, and but yeah, the Extra Outer Space did get a DVD Blu-ray release, and like you said, I think Criterion. But I remember at least a few years back there was a single release that was not a great transfer that I remember seeing out there. So, but I'm sure the Criterion gave it a lot of love in that transfer.
No, the Criterion version is good. It also got a sequel in 2008.
Yeah, which would you prefer to watch, Monster X or Strikes Back?
That's a tough question. That is a very difficult question. I don't know. Probably the original, I guess. The sequel is a comedy. It's a weird movie. And Gilala also appeared in some, was it an insurance advertisement?
Yeah, some kind of advertisement. I can't remember specifically.
Like official, appearance, but it's what it is.
Yeah, got to cash in on that suit they made, so.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Wasn't there rumors that younger E's suit was going to suffer a similar kind of fate, where it's just going to become a commercial? I feel like I heard that somewhere, where there was potential that younger E was going to be in some commercials, and then they scrapped it because it was not. They decided it wasn't a good idea.
Well, younger E is, I guess it's kind of become a generic term in Korea for like giant monster. There are there's like I'm sure someone who's actually South Korean can correct me, but there are there's like snacks and candies that are named Youngri that have Youngri as the mascot.
Actually, I think those came out when the '99 film came out.
Yeah, and they still exist.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah, as far as I know, yeah, they've outlived the movie.
the merchandising would.
Yeah.
Maybe they need to think of an animated series of Yongari.
They should.
Yeah.
They should bring them back.
Yeah.
Next on our list is Colossal, which is kind of a personal favorite of mine. It really is more of an Ultra Q-esque kind of movie than a Godzilla movie, but we included it because it did have some legal troubles with Toho in the beginning, where they were selling the movie to financiers as a Godzilla movie and had Godzilla photos on their promotional art, and so that caused some stirs in the industry.
Yeah.
But eventually they just made their own generic kaiju, which I think was the intention all along. There was just a miscommunication between the director saying, I want to make a Godzilla movie, when he meant, I want to make a kaiju movie. So I think that's where it all kind of came from. But it's really a fun flick. It's really out there. It does something completely unique. It's not like your average kaiju movie, but it's one that I highly recommend. It's a Canadian Italian co-pro, I believe. But yeah, Anne Hathaway and Jason Sudeikis both star in it and do a fantastic job.
That was post Godzilla 2014, wasn't it? Like a
2016, I think.
Yeah.
I will say, I definitely recommend this movie. It's almost like more of a drama comedy than a monster movie, but I do recommend watching it. Everyone I've shown it to has really enjoyed it, even people who don't like monster movies. If you can, though, just don't watch any trailers or anything. Just go into it and have fun. Let it take you for a ride. It's a very unique film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Without spoiling it, I think that's the best advice. Check it out. Go in cold. It's out there. I'm sure it's even on some streaming service out there. So
yeah, it's got it.
Yes, and there's Blu-ray releases, and I think it's readily available.
Yeah, I'm sure you can rent it on Google or iTunes or whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got our last movie here, and we saved the. I don't know if I'd say it's the best, but like the most unique for last, because it's a movie that is lost. We cannot find it. If someone is out there and they know where this movie is, sound the alarm.
Yeah.
It's a East Indian, a Bollywood kaiju film called Gogola, and it's black and white as far as we can tell. It might not be actually. The only images are some promotional images, like a poster, and a single. There was a musical theme for Gogola that you can find on YouTube. It's catchy, and that's it. It's one of those instances where it's another culture, kind of jumping on the kaiju bandwagon, and I would really love to see it someday, but as of now, we'll just have to imagine what it's really like. I hope it has musical numbers, and you can find the theme on YouTube, so definitely check it out. But
yeah, I think it's also one of those ones where just due to the climate and conditions of India, it's not likely that film has survived there. So the chances of finding a copy of it is very slim.
With what you do know about it, what years of production and what's kind of the description of what the film is or the creature.
So the creature you can see on the poster, which is pretty cool. I'm just double checking the year.
Yeah.
The creature looks a bit cheap and basically just a big dinosaur. It's from 1966. But we don't really know a lot about the plot of the film or any of those details. We can just see an image of the monster, posters, production stills.
There is a lobby card that's in color, so
it looks a bit like a giant naked mole rat.
Yeah,
I don't even think it has a tail.
I think it has a little tail, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But,
you got to be descriptive for the podcast listeners out there, because I'll put pictures of the creature on the YouTube. But yeah, so you would say dinosaur-esque, but also naked mole rat.
Yes.
Yeah.
If the two merged together, and it had teeth like Gigantus.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And giant, or are we talking about?
It's big.
It's full on kaiju.
It's a full on kaiju, because there have been other Bollywood films that have used, there's one that is a kind of caveman film that uses footage from Frankenstein versus Baragon.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not really a kaiju movie per se. It's trying to use it as kind of footage of a caveman just fighting a dinosaur.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is like an honest to goodness original giant monster movie from from East India, and I haven't found anyone who has seen it.
Mm-hmm. And it's out there in someone's private collection, along with what's that famous Lon Chaney?
London After
Midnight. Yes, and some of the other, the Lost Kong films made in Japan and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. I won't rest until we find Gogola.
Yeah. Keep
someday.
Keep the caffeine ready, because you're probably gonna be waiting a while. So, but yeah, this is a great list actually. And what's cool is we learn a lot from each other as being kaiju fans. Because there's a few on this list. Yeah, I have no idea, so I'm definitely getting somewhat of an education here on these, and I'm gonna have to start looking them up to just check out what you're saying, because sometimes you ever get that where you explain a bad movie to somebody and they're like, no, actually, the way you described it makes me want to see it. It sounds pretty cool. Because you oversold it.
Go and see it for yourself.
Yeah. I mean, that's most of our friend group, because we're psychopaths, and we hear a bad movie, we're like, yeah, that's something that I want to see.
I've got to check it out. And if you're a fan of Mystery Science Theater, of course, you're used to that. It doesn't faze you, and you're commenting right along with it. You're making your own jabs at it. So, very cool list. I think this is great, and everyone should check out some of these films. And with while you're doing that, to check out 13 a.m. Games. So I want to make sure that you're getting the chance to plug what's going on with 13 a.m. So I'll give you that time right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So 13 a.m. Games is an independent video game company in Toronto, and right now we're working on a kaiju beat 'em up. So it's a game where you and a buddy can cooperatively smash through cities and fight other monsters and all sorts of stuff. It's called Dawn of the Monsters, and it's coming out on Nintendo Switch, PC, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X. So it's going to be on everything. We've had a lot of fun making it. Steve's been working on the audio. He makes all the roars. He does them authentically.
All with my own voice, just.
Yeah, he just screams into a mic all day. But yeah, we're super excited about this game. It is coming out this year. There will be some news, hopefully within the next month or two. We can share a lot more on it. But for now, check out our website, 13amgames.com, our Twitter, Facebook, all that stuff. We'll try to keep everyone up to date.
Okay, on Twitter, is it at 13am games, I believe?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. And check that out. And yeah, Dawn of the Monsters, and it features two of the monsters that you're associated with, SEISMIC toys, that you have made Sofubi's of, correct?
Yeah, you can, SEISMIC Toys, which is just seismictoys.com, is a company that Chris Olio and I started, and we created toys for Megadon and Ganira, and a couple different variations of them. Some of them have already sold out, but there's still a good amount of them up on the site available. And next time that we are able to attend conventions together, we'll definitely bring them to G-Fest or whatever. But yeah, you can also pick up the toys.
I got my Frost version of Megadon, and I love it. And I know that the Frost version of Ganira I'm going to have to get, so he's not standing there on the shelf alone. So yeah, it's a pretty cool figure, and yeah, I think going into the design of that, an original kaiju, and this one, having its story told through the game, and that's gonna be awesome to see. So this year, we're looking forward to seeing that, right?
This year, yeah. I guarantee it.
Okay, when you get
promise.
When you get a date, it will be all over my social sites. And we'll make sure that it's definitely plugged for everyone. There should be no excuse to be able to see it. So on all the consoles, they'll be able to do a download of that, and PC as well, right? Yeah.
We're also looking into maybe doing a physical version as well. You can get, like a special edition, so you have a disc or a card or whatever.
Very cool. Yeah, be cool to see the graphic work, and I think you have John Bellotti Jr. doing some of the graphic work for at least I remember on SEISMIC the header card.
Yeah, he did the header card art. It's really, really cool.
Yeah.
And we haven't announced them yet, but there's a couple more cool artists that we've managed to get to work on Dawn of the Monsters that we'll be announcing in the coming months.
All right, looking forward to that. I'm going to have you guys back on to talk more of Dawn of the Monsters because, yeah, definitely excited for that and to get that out there for everyone to check out. So thank you, gentlemen, so much for your time. You've been very generous with it. So I'd encourage everyone to follow these guys out there, especially on social media, on Twitter. Check out their website. I'm going to be posting all the links in the show description here and in the show notes on podcast. So thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time, and we'll definitely have you back on a future episode here in the Monster Report.
Awesome. Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
All right, and thank you for joining us for another episode here. Check out everything 13am Games and subscribe to the channel. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell because subscriptions apparently don't mean anything anymore. And definitely leave us a comment and check out the podcast as well. So share it so everyone can check this out. And we will catch you next time on another episode of the Monster Report. Thank you very much.